Hey everyone, Miss Lassiter here, and in today's video we're going to talk about what to do when a group member is slacking off on a group project.
Oh man, not this kid. They never do anything.
Now if you're watching this video, you may already be in the midst of a group project where you've got somebody who's just not pulling their weight, someone who is benefiting from the work of the group and not doing their job. Now in this video, I'm going to give you some smaller tips and tricks for how to deal with these people in your group who just won't do the work that they're supposed to do, but also go all the way up to some larger steps you can take once this happens to you. I'm also going to go over a few preventative measures to stop this from happening when the project begins, but chances are if you're watching this video, you may already find yourself in this situation, so I'll just cut to the chase and get started with my tips. So unfortunately, this idea of group members slacking off, or social loafing as it's called in the business world, can happen as early as the first time you do a group project all the way up through high school and college. I had it happen to me in grad school too. I'll tell you that story later. And then of course, in the real world, in the workplace. The term social loafing is actually a research-based term for people who don't pull their weight in a group project. The good news is there are some strategies we can take from the business world to help deal with these people. And if you're watching this video, you might be a student like the one I was in high school who really wanted to do well, put a lot of effort into their group projects, and got really frustrated when students weren't doing what they said they would do, were unreliable, or just plain lazy. And there's really no way you're going to get through your school or life without encountering at least a few group projects. This may lead to you wanting to take over, do all the work by yourself, or just not be in a group at all. But this isn't really a good practice, and taking on all the work is not good teamwork and it is not good leadership. And you don't want to demonstrate poor teamwork and poor leadership in your classes either. Alright, so my very first tip is kind of simple, but that's to get all of the information that you need first when you notice somebody is slacking off. Maybe it's just a communication issue. Maybe they don't have your email, or they don't know where to put the documents, or they're not even sure what part of the project they were assigned. So make sure, first and foremost, you talk to that student or have a conversation with that student over text in person to see what is going on and to make sure they know exactly what they need to do. I know this is a little awkward and embarrassing, especially if you're talking to a peer, but you want to make sure everybody is working in the same place, they know what's expected of them, and that they have access to all the information they need. It could just be an error of miscommunication, and you don't want to jump to any conclusions about a particular person or their work until you've given them the opportunity to do the best job that they can. I know some projects are really time sensitive, but maybe it's not always a laziness issue. So reach out to the person, and at the start of a project, make sure you exchange contact information, whether you agree to collaborate over email, text, a group me, through a Google Doc, but make sure everyone has access and is going to check those means of communication in the project. Next up, you want to check and see if there have been roles assigned in the project, and if there are roles, are people performing the roles that they should. If your teacher doesn't ask you to assign roles within the project, then you might want to do that just as a group yourself. This can really help with people making sure that they know exactly what they need to do and keeping themselves on track. Now, again, if you designate yourself team lead, you want to make sure you're not doing the work for everyone, because again, that is not the role of the team leader. Make sure the roles are clearly defined and they're written down either on a piece of paper or somewhere that everyone can see them, on a Google Doc, on your slides that you're putting together. But make sure people know what their roles are, either as defined by you or defined by the teacher. Make sure also that once the roles and tasks are assigned, everybody in the group can say out loud what they are tasked with doing. The act of doing that will help them remember it, it'll help them take ownership, and hopefully if there's any conflict or overlap in roles or tasks, you'll be able to clear that up right away. So now we're getting into the part where you're in a group and you've already noticed somebody is starting to slack off, even though you've assigned roles, even though you've divvied up the tasks. This is where you want to use some psychology hacks or some research-based practices in organizational behavior, which is basically business psychology, in order to work together as a team to be the most productive you can. Like I said, social loafing is actually really common in the business world. It's a lot easier for people to slack off if they realize the group effort as a whole is going to mask their laziness. A great way to actually change behavior is positive praise. So positive reinforcement for things that this person is doing well can actually be really important to their overall work ethic, and they'll continue to do good things if you're actually complimenting their work, involving them in group discussions, and making sure you're highlighting the things that they're doing well. No one likes when you're nagging them over and over to do something, so instead switch it around. Make sure you praise the things that they do well and compliment them for the work that they actually have done. If they really haven't done anything at all, ask for their opinion. Bring them in, offer them a choice. Do you like this image better or this? Should we format it this way? what do you think of this source? And then you're bringing them into the project instead of saying, hey, you're not doing anything. Why don't you look up some sources for me? Make sure too you're setting deadlines with clear goals. You can't just say, do these slides. You want to make sure for everyone in the group that you are identifying clear specific tasks along the way of the project. This is just good project management. Another psychology tip is if you find yourself getting really angry or annoyed with a person in a group and you're in a physical environment, you can sit next to them instead of across from them. It's a lot easier to be aggressive when you're face to face, but if you're sitting next to them, one, if they're working on a computer or on a screen, you'll be able to see their work, collaborate together, share ideas. You'd have to physically turn to face them and be angry. And so it's not as intimidating when you're sitting next to somebody, both facing the same direction. So if someone in your group is really slacking off and really annoying you, try to sit next to that person. Next, sometimes if people just aren't getting started on the work, give them a choice. You can do this or that. Then they're taking ownership of the idea, they're choosing one or the other of something, and then hopefully going to get started. When you break it down into something simple like that, you're actually tricking the brain into thinking, oh, this isn't that hard at all, and I chose that. If they don't want to do something, or there's a conflict in the group about who's doing what, put something silly in. Make a rock, paper, scissors choice for the work or the activity. The next small little hack to change that slacking behavior is to decrease anonymity within a group. So if you're doing something like group slides, agree as a group to put your name in really small font or in your initials on the corner of each slide. Researchers have found that increasing identifiability on group work actually increases productivity and the quality of work in larger groups. Another thing to do to make sure that people are having a good experience and then hopefully contributing to the group when they're outside of that group environment, to make sure you begin work time and you end work time on a positive note. Having a little mini team meeting together before you start and then saying some positive things and reminding people of what they accomplished during that time at the end of the team meeting actually can help people have a positive memory overall of that work experience. Even if they got grumpy in the middle or it was a frustrating work period, having a positive beginning and end is actually more likely to stick in your memory as a positive memory overall than if you have a positive interaction in the middle. When group members feel more invested and involved in the group, they tend to be more productive as well. This doesn't mean that you always have to work with your friends, but it does mean that if you create a positive work environment, you'll in general be more productive as a team. All right, next up, if you're the one assigning roles, this is really important. You want to set high expectations for people in the group. If you know somebody is assigned to your group and you're like, oh man, not this kid, they never do anything, you don't want to assign them the smallest task ever. One, they may not even do that small task, and two, they know that you're setting a low expectation for them. By setting higher expectations, not unattainable, but higher expectations, they may reach it, they may reach just below it, and they may be working toward that higher expectation. So setting attainable goals, not too hard, not too easy, is really key, especially for people who tend to slack off. It's also good to set team work times. If you're working remotely together, you can log on at the same time to all co-work during the same Zoom or Google Meet time. Or if you're working outside of class, make sure you hold the expectation that everybody shows up for that group meeting. Also good to do check-ins with your team. If you have a longer running group project, it's good maybe once a week if you're the team leader to do a roll call and say, hey, I got this done this week and I plan to get this done next week. What's everybody else done? Then you're showing other people that you're being accountable and you're checking in on everyone else without being rude about it. As people accomplish tasks, come up with something that will be rewarding to do as a group. Maybe if you check 5 things off the list as a group, you will take a little break. Or if you get everything done by a certain time, you will order some food together. It doesn't have to be huge, but think of small little things that you could do along the way to reward yourselves as a team and individuals for accomplishing tasks. Say someone in the group is slacking off and they want to show you a good YouTube video. You can say, all right, cool, let's do this thing first and then we'll watch it together. Again, involvement and making sure that reward is there at the end of the task. If you think about splitting the project up into mini deadlines too, think about which parts of the project have dependencies. These are things that can't be done without other things happening first. If you know somebody in your group is super slacking off, don't assign them a task that is going to be a dependency for another important task along the way. Think about where you're assigning the tasks and to whom, and maybe give the person who tends to slack off something that can be done that the rest of the project project isn't dependent on. Let's say you're watching this video, well, you've tried a bunch of these things and this group member is still slacking off, or this is a huge part of your grade and this project is really going to affect how you do in the class. Well, you want to make sure that you involve your teacher, professor, team lead, whoever is involved in assigning you this project. You don't want to blindside them and let them know at the very end of the project at 11:59 p.m. before it's due. You also don't want to let them know at the very beginning of the project and showing them that you're whiny and you have no faith in your team members. You want to show them that you have tried some of these strategies, and then you can go to them and say, hey, I'm really concerned about this group member. First, before you contact your teacher, check and see in the project description or in the syllabus if they already have a procedure in place for group members who are slacking off. A lot of professors do. I know teachers who have a firing system for group members, or a yellow card system where group members get these particular steps before they actually get ejected from a team or face consequences. If you're contacting the teacher, make sure to do it not too late, so not the night before it's due or right after you turn it in, but contact them a little into the project. Tell them the things that you have done to mitigate this problem, and then ask for help. You really want to make sure you've addressed it with this person before you email the teacher, because that's just good leadership. One thing you can do to mitigate this a little bit at the beginning of a project is, as soon as the project is assigned, ask the teacher in front of the whole class, is there a system in place for people who don't do their work? Now, it's a little passive aggressive, but if there is a system, the teacher will clarify it in front of everyone. And if there's not a system, maybe the teacher will be thinking about that, and keep an eye on your team too while they're working. Now, I hope this video hasn't turned you off of group projects. I know they can be frustrating for people, especially for those of you who end up doing all of the work or seeing other people benefiting from your hard work. But if you want to be a good leader or you want to be a good team member, managing people who slack off is a really important skill. So I hope some of these tips and tricks will help you. Let me know if you've had an experience with a group member slacking off in the comments below, and like this video if it's been helpful to you. Thanks so much. I'll see you later.